the hash functions that are stored in the SIM card. They're generally implemented as one hash function with the response being split in two. The first version of A3A8 is called Comp128. In 1998, yes, 12 years ago, this was reverse engineered and published and completely broken to the point where you can recover the secret key and effectively clone the phone by sending it 150,000 chosen challenges. It's actually a collision in one particular round of the Comp128 function. There's subsequent work been done. The initial 150,000 challenges was for what's called a 2R differential attack against each byte of the secret key. Subsequent work has extended that to 3R, 4R, 5R attacks and reduced it from 150,000 challenges to 80,000 challenges. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I wouldn't regard a 128-bit hash function as secure if I can disclose the secret key with just 80,000 challenges, 80,000 chosen challenges. It's totally broken. Unfortunately, lots of mobile network operators still use it. They don't seem to care that SIMs can be cloned. They don't seem to care that there's no real security here. It's what they use, so it's what they're going to continue to use. Their response to these cloning attacks was to make the SIM card self-destruct after 64,000 challenges. So instead of actually deploying a secure hash function, deploying something that has some semblance of security, they just cut the SIM card off just before you get enough challenges to actually recover the secret key. So that's not much of a defense. Comp128 has been subsequently patched. There's version 2 and version 3. Neither one has ever been publicly disclosed or publicly cryptanalyzed. We do know that they're very similar to the Comp128 version 1, so they probably suffer from the very same or very similar vulnerabilities. But the simple reality is that there's lots of different A3A8 functions in use. As it turns out, Comp128, the whole family of Comp128 functions has been, because the version 1 function was broken so badly, the whole family isn't trusted by MNOs generally. So although some MNOs do still use Comp128, a lot of them end up rolling their own hash functions. And we all know how well that turns out. So there's all kinds of functions out there. There's all kinds of hashes in use. Who knows what kinds of bugs are lurking? If you can find a way to figure out what hash function is being used by your mobile network operator of choice, chances are there's going to be a break in it somewhere. The attack against V1 is very well known. This link is for one example of a V1 SIM cloner. This will work with the Lady Ada's serial SIM card readers. Clones a V1 SIM card in about 8 hours. None of these tools, none of these Comp128 cracking tools are open source. I've not seen an open source one yet. I have seen lots and lots and lots of people saying, hey, I've just broken Comp128 version 2. Here's my binary. Please ignore all the rootkits and malware and downloaders and droppers. And so if you do want to try cloning your SIM, it's relatively easy to find code to do so, but please be careful. They're riddled with malware. Run it in VMware, and then just restore the image when you're done. So yeah, the hash function in the SIM, there's one that's been analyzed and broken. There's 2 more that have never been analyzed, and there's a whole bunch that nobody really knows what's going on. Not a particularly great situation as compared to public discourse on what hash function to use. So let's talk about ciphers now. A5. A5 is used to encrypt your traffic. Now, depending on what kind of traffic you're sending, you could get a different variant of A5. The 3 known variants of A5, A5.1 is the most common variant. This is the original European A5 cipher. A5.2 is a weakened version of A5.1 that was designed for export. Very, very similar. It's a very similar design of cipher. It uses 3 irregularly clocked linear feedback shift registers, but slightly different construction. A53 is a completely different cipher, totally different. Instead of being an LFSR-based stream cipher, it's a block cipher. It's a block cipher. The point of it is that when you connect to my BTS, I get to tell you what A5 variant we're going to use. You have no input into this decision whatsoever. It's not like you can reject what I'm offering you. Either you accept the cipher that I'm offering or you don't connect to my BTS. It's as simple as that. How do you attack these functions? Well, A52 is deliberately weakened. The year after the COMP128 break was published, A52 was broken. It was broken so badly that from a few seconds of recorded GSM conversation, you can actually recover the session key from the ciphertext. It's about as bad as crypto breaks get. So, assuming that we own the BTS, so you're all connected to my base station here. I get to choose which A5 variant we're going to talk, and I get to choose the random nonce that I use to authenticate you. So what I can do is, I can wait until you're on AT&T, and I can sniff your conversation on AT&T. We'll come back to the frequency hopping aspect of that. But the point is, I can sniff and record your conversation, and I can recover that random nonce. It's sent in plain text. It's not supposed to be secret. Then when you connect to my BTS, I can negotiate A52 with you and replay that same random nonce, which means that once you've started ciphering with A52 with the same session key, I can then break A52, recover the session key for that random nonce, and apply that session key to my recorded conversation from earlier. Which means that, effectively, I can record your conversations and then trick you into connecting to my BTS and decrypt all of your traffic, regardless of which A5 variant you're talking on your legitimate network. Hold it, yeah. It gets better. One of the main defenses that's been proposed against this sniffing and replay attack is frequency hopping. There's a couple of problems with the frequency hopping implementation, not least of which is that the BTSs get to choose whether they tell you the frequency hopping sequence in plain text or in ciphertext. And a lot of them will actually tell you the frequency hopping sequence in plain text before they've established the ciphering. So you can just follow along with the frequency hopping. Alternatively, and this is the really fun one, the USRP2 actually has oodles of bandwidth in it, so much so that it's feasible to record the entire GSM band for a given network operator. So you just say, right, AT&T, they're using this band from this frequency to this frequency. You record the whole thing, dump the whole band over gigabit Ethernet, stream it to hard drive, and record it later. So once you've broken the A5 key and you've recovered that random nonce, once you've recovered the random nonce and you've broken that A5 key, you can then figure out the frequency hopping sequence from your recordings if you want to. So the frequency hopping is not a defense at all. The sequence is sometimes sent in plain text, and even if it's not, you can just grab the whole band and just dump the whole band to disk. It's really good fun. There is not even a pretense of forward secrecy in GSM. If I can record any of your calls at any time later that I get hold of your secret key, or even just the session key that was used to encrypt that conversation, I can decrypt your traffic. It's not like SSL where you can negotiate an ephemeral key in the middle of the protocol that means that later on, if I recover the secret key, I can't decrypt your SSL traffic. There's nothing like that in GSM. There is no forward secrecy. So A51 and A53, we talked about A52. A51 is a 64-bit stream cipher which uses a 54-bit key. The way that they do this is just by zeroing out 10 of the bits. If that's not a deliberate act to weaken the security of A51, I don't know what is. Why you would ever take 64 bits of key material and zero out 10 of the bits before passing it to a 64-bit stream cipher, I don't know. Even if those 10 bits weren't zeroed out, it's still just a 64-bit cipher. So it's viable to produce rainbow tables against A51 in its native form. This is what Carsten and I released at CCC, is the rainbow tables for A51 in its native form. There are various cryptanalytical attacks against A51 as well that allow you to compensate with various time memory trade-offs for various characteristics. Given that it's a 54-bit cipher, you don't really need to worry about it. And you can, the rainbow tables that we released at CCC are for just straight A51. We're not doing any cryptanalysis of it. There's nothing special about it. It's just straight A51. A53 is the most secure of the GSM ciphers. There have been attacks disclosed against A53. They're not viable against 3G systems because they require too much known plain text. The attacks against A53 so far are related key attacks. They just don't work with the 3G crypto scheme. The interesting thing about it, though, is that A53 was based on another cipher called Misty. A53 is called Kasumi. And the attacks against Kasumi don't work against Misty. So once again, they took a function and they weakened it for use in GSM. Whether it was done deliberately or not, I don't know, but the end result is that there is a cryptanalytical result against Kasumi that does not apply to Misty. So it's a weakening of that ciphering function. So we've got a few attacks on the crypto side as well. We've got no client challenge, so we've only got one random nonce in there, so we're vulnerable to replay attacks. We've got a 54-bit session key, which is just too small in the modern day and age. SIM cards are vulnerable to man-in-the-middle attacks. We can negotiate null crypto. In fact, we're actively encouraged to negotiate null crypto by the fact that your network operator will disable the warning alerting you that you're on null crypto. Hash functions, Comp128 version 1 has been badly broken and is still being used. There's all kinds of secret hash functions in use. There's all kinds of secret ciphering functions in use. All of this that I've talked about so far is against basic GSM. There's all kinds of extra ciphers used in GPRS and Edge and 3G that have, again, never been disclosed, never been cryptanalyzed. There's a lot of secrecy still remaining in GSM. Out of the functions that have been disclosed, A51 is pretty broken. A52 is horrifically broken. A53 is academically broken. So what are you left with? You've got the opportunity to replay these random nonces and crack the A52 key to break forward secrecy. There's a lot of cryptographic attacks against GSM. Seriously, is it this bad? Yes, it really is. There is no security in GSM at all. It's not secure. What have we not talked about here? Well, if you think about it, I've just got a base station here, and I've got my own network and my own kind of asterisk and voice over IP backhaul and all the rest of it. When you consider a legitimate cell network, there's, again, all kinds of infrastructure behind that cell tower. You've got the base station controller, you've got the master system controller, you've got the hardware location registry, all of these different components and many more. They're all interconnected using a protocol known as SS7, Signaling System 7. SS7 is actually just as broken as GSM. It really is. It has some fabulously stupid flaws in it. So if you combine the two, and you combine kind of GSM hackery on the front end with SS7 hackery on the back end, you can have a lot of fun. I'm not going to talk about it in too much detail. I'm just going to pimp Nick and Don's talk. This is their research on SS7 and GSM. Highly recommend it. They're doing some great stuff. If you're going to Boston Source, I recommend going to the talk. That's all from me. Questions? Yes. Question down here?
Yeah, how does LTE stand?
How does LTE stand? To be honest, all of the stuff that I've talked about here is just GSM. 3G technologies, 3G is a significant overhaul of the GSM architecture. It does add client challenges. It does add network-to-handset authentication. There's all kinds of stuff changed. 3G is much better. Even 2.5 and 2.75G, so GPRS and Edge, are much better than basic GSM.